Now we're going to work with two heat tools. We're going to work with the iron and we're going to work with a heat gun. We're going to make a corsage. Here I have 3 rough circles of painted heavier weight Tyvek. I've got a large green piece, a middle-sized red piece and a smaller blue piece. I've cut some curved lines into the edges of the larger piece. I've just snipped into the little blue center here. So this is going to be the corsage. I've just stapled these together for speed, but you could stitch into them and later on you could add a little decorative bead there, either a Tyvek bead or a glass bead or whatever you fancy. So I'm just going to start off with an iron first to start raising the texture. And again, you need to use baking parchment on the top and underneath, but you really hardly touch the Tyvek. You're just building up the heat so that the petals, as they were, start to curve up just very gently. You can skip this part if you want to, but I quite like just to slowly get the Tyvek moving before I go in with the heat gun. You can see that it's just starting to move now, particularly where I've cut into the Tyvek on the edges. Again, you're just almost lifting off. Whoops, that's too much. You're lifting off the iron so you don't get that effect. This is going to be a lopsided one, but this is what happens when you're trying to manage an iron at the same time as filming. So we have a very textured side and a not so textured side, but this will be fun. I will persevere. Now, when you're working with a heat gun, you don't really want to put your fingers in where you're going to be heating. So I tend to use a long knitting needle or a long bladed pair of scissors just to keep my fingers out of the way. I'm going to use the heat gun on low to start with. And I think I might be a bit careful as I've just basically annihilated the Tyvek at the edge. And you can start to work the little centerpiece. You can work the middle piece here. It's just starting to build up now. You can start to make it curl up. This might be a better angle. It's having patience is my problem. I want it now. I very rarely like to wait for anything. And when you're working with layers, you have to understand that you're also working the Tyvek that's underneath the piece that you're working on as well. So when you work in layers, it can become quite fun, but it's a good way of learning control, as I showed you earlier with this poor annihilated piece here with the iron and the heat gun. The heat gun will give you a different effect to the iron. And obviously, because you're not working in the flat, the Tyvek hasn't been trapped between the iron, so it can just curl up and do all kinds of things. I'm just going to work on this little red bit a bit more. So you can create some lovely, wondrous, kind of strange and unusual flowers and plants, even monsters if you wanted to. So you just let the heat build up and then you start to move the heat gun as the Tyvek heats and distorts. It's all about control. Whoop, that's curling up quite nicely now. I actually quite like that. It's kind of strange and unusual. So we have a little strange and unusual little corsage there that could be worn on a hat or a cardigan. You could make several of them, make a big headband. There's so many different ways. You could make really huge decorated pieces, lots of different circles, all piled on top of each other, and create just huge, really big pieces of wonderful Tyvek. The heavier weight one is obviously quite strong and isn't going to go anywhere. So that's quite a little fun piece. I think the red works really well in that. Shines nicely. Now I just need to cover those staples up with a couple of beads. And speaking of beads, Tyvek beads are next.